I'm turning this painting into this painting using an airbrush. Welcome back, guys. If you're new here, my name is G and I teach acrylic pouring and other fun art forms. Today I'm going to show you how to create this fun 3D effect using an airbrush, and you'll see that although it looks complicated and intricate, it's actually a very simple process that you rinse and repeat. So if you've had an airbrush lying around and were looking for a fun project to try with it, now's the time. So let's quickly run through the materials that you're going to need. You're going to need an airbrush, obviously, and you're going to need a painting to do this on. And I recommend the painting with lighter colors so you can see what you're doing better. You're also going to want a pair of scissors and some vinyl sticker to make cutouts out of. And you will want to not remove the backing. You'll want to keep both parts together. You're also going to want to prop your painting up vertically on an easel or on something on your desk because you can't point an airbrush straight down, so you can't work horizontally. So if you have airbrush paint, that's great, but if you don't, I like to use acrylic premix paints like the Arteza brand, for example, and I like to thin them with 70% isopropyl alcohol. I find works better than water in my small airbrush that only outputs 20 psi. If you have the right paints and the right thinner, by all means use that, but I'm working with entirely budget materials here. So to create our little cutout, or reverse stencil if you will, we need a piece of vinyl sticker. We're not going to remove the backing. We want the vinyl side to spray on so it doesn't disintegrate from the water, and then the paper side is what you can touch the painting with or put against the painting when you spray. Okay? We're doing the petal shapes, right? So all you really need is one of these, if you can see. Right? And I find it helps me to just give myself like a little handle, something to hold it with. Right, so let me just bring that closer to the camera. Right, almost like it looks like a speech bubble. Right, and then we'll just cut that out to the best of our ability, trying to maintain the curves, but we can smooth those out at the end. Right, so as you can see, I'm not particularly good with scissors. I have some corners, so I'm just going to carefully try and round those out. And there you go, we have our petal. So normally there's basically two main ways that we use this. This would be called the stencil. This is called the cutout. If you were to use this, you would be filling in the actual space or the light information, whereas here you use this to spray paint around the outside for the shadow information. We're going to be working with this for the optical illusion or for the 3D effect. So we basically start from the center outwards, spray around the edge, and then move it along a little, and assume that every time you move it along, it's basically going under the petal before it, right? So if you wind up with a spot that's a little bit dark or the airbrush splatters, don't despair. Here's the solution. Just use the rubbing alcohol or the isopropyl alcohol that we were using before. It'll get it right out. And we can basically keep repeating this process, going outwards from the center and going under each new petal as we go along until we get to the outside or as big as you want the piece to be. At this point in time, we're basically just outlining the petals. We're not really creating the full tonal value of the piece, but that's what comes next. So first we handle the composition, and then we'll look at how dark we want to make the shadows. Now at this stage, you can begin to address some of the smaller details, like if you want to make slightly smaller petals, or if you want to add shading to give the petals curvature by doing some lines in the middle, or, you know, general triangular shapes coming out of the base of the stem. You could do that. And essentially what I'm doing here is now I'm developing the full tonal value of the painting. So if you can think of it in its current state as very, very well lit from up above, so there's very slim shadows, but that kind of requires you to look really close, whereas if we develop this a little bit further and make it darker, it'll start to look really interesting. So you can do this freehand, or you can do this with the cutout that we were using earlier. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm spreading out the shading a little bit. What we want to do is we want to extend the shadows outwards We want to darken the shadows a little and extend the shadows outwards, and essentially give more contrast and depth to the painting. And finally, at the end, you're probably going to want to use a brush to just kind of black out the remaining parts. You can still use the airbrush for this, but I find this honestly gets it done a lot quicker. And you can also get the sides while you're at it, right? So take your time. You don't want to, end up ruining the painting or getting some of the really solid black over the colors at this stage. So take your time doing it. If you end up using pre-mixed paints like I did and thin them down yourself, the good bonus is you'll have the exact same shade of black that you used in the airbrush to use with your regular brush to fill out any of the remaining negative space, right? The thing to note about premixed paints though is even though like black or Mars black is an opaque color, when you use it with a brush and spread it too much, it also gets transparent, so you might find that you'll need multiple coats. So as I said, just take your time with it and it'll look great in the end. The sides usually especially take multiple coats, so that's what I'm doing right now. I think that looks good.